Hi, Damon. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm speaking with Damon Bradley Jang, and you're a multidisciplinary theater artist. Multidisciplinary sounds like a lot of different things, but I know you work primarily in theater, and that's how I've come to know you. So maybe let's start with an introduction in your own words, a little bit about yourself and your work in the arts.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Damon. I go by he, him. I'm originally from Greater Vancouver, so Burnaby Coquitlam specifically, but I went to university in Vancouver. I attended Capilano University for their music theater program, and then I subsequently went back for their inaugural Bachelor's of Performing Arts program. And yeah, since 2009, I've been working exclusively in the arts as an educator, performer, director, choreographer, um, set decorator, props person, literally any job under the sun I can get my hands on that involves me in the art form I've undertaken in some way or another.
Nice. So that makes you very well rounded in a sense of sort of knowing the intricacies that go into putting on a production, I would think.
Yeah, I would think so.
So, so you've done your training in theater arts, and now you're in a very prestigious position within the Stratford Festival. You're part of the Birmingham Conservatory. And I was reading
Mhm.
a little bit about it on the Stratford Festival. It's a very ambitious program of 2 years. And I think it's how many of you? 10?
There was 10 of us. Now it's down to 9 of us. Uh, 8 actors primary, and then myself. Although I've gotten to do some acting, my primary discipline is as a director or an apprentice emerging director.
Excellent. So I know that the Stratford Festival has sort of developed this as a sort of an incubator of sorts for artists. How did you come about? I know that there's an audition process, and they're also in reading about the festival, they're also trying to diversify and sort of add a lot of new ways to be more inclusive. And there's a lot of buzzwords going around in the arts about diversity and inclusion and anti-racism stands. So how did you experience your audition process and kind of being chosen as one of the finals?
Yeah, so it's actually a bit of a funny story. I was applying to do my master's in London, England, and I'd spent a year sort of prepping, going to interviews and then second interviews and then being on the short list and then waiting and then them telling me that I was still on the short list and that they'd made their first round offers already. And then by that time, this was about August of 2021. I had convinced myself that I was going to get into the school. When I heard that I was on the short list, I thought, yeah, I'm definitely getting in, considering the percentage of people that get through to the program of color is quite small. But when they said that I was on the short list still and they made their first run offers, I kind of had a panic attack because I didn't have anything booked. I was prepping to leave, so I moved back home and I sold a bunch of my stuff. And then I saw the posting for the conservatory, and originally it had been posted for just classic actors. And so I thought to myself, well, I don't think that I'm prepared. I don't have the same level of experience to go into the program as a classic actor. And then I clicked on the website and I found out some more information and that they were actually accepting directors, designers, coaches, non-acting disciplines into the program. So I had asked a friend of mine who was a casting associate at the time. I said, "Should I apply?" And he said, "Yes, absolutely. We're trying to get and engage more diverse people applying and submitting for these kinds of creative role positions that are outside of onstage acting. So I did that. I sent in it. I basically repackaged what I had for my grad school application, and I wrote a new letter of intent, and I sent it off. And a couple weeks later, I was invited to do a Zoom interview, much like this. And then a couple weeks after that, I was invited to attend the callbacks in Stratford. They flew or brought 30 of us from all across the country, three directors, three directing candidates, I believe 27, 28 acting hopefuls, and they brought us together. It was the most unique callback experience I've ever had, because not only did it really represent the melting pot that is Canadian artists, or that's the most reflected diverse room that I've ever been in personally in a callback of that magnitude. But they started by giving us a full day of classwork. So voice, movements, some chats with some of the elders in the program that sort of gave us a little bit of insight into performing arts. And then the next day they had most of the auditions. The director's auditions were actually on the first day, and then the actors were on the second day. And so it was a little different for us, because they asked us to submit pieces to perform in addition to being interviewed. So not only did we have to perform monologues as an actor, but we also were given an opportunity to sit and have an interview like this in person, where they asked us questions about our practice and why the conservatory and why Stratford and things like that. And so it was lucky that I had enough acting training to feel like, okay, I think I can get myself to a point where I can be good enough to show my range in acting. But I knew that realistically, what the cornerstone of what would help me get in was the interview process. So I obviously wanted to make sure that I was a good enough actor, but I knew that that wasn't the focus. I knew that that wasn't, the pressure was off a little bit, because I knew that I also had my interview section, which allowed me time to really talk about the kind of work that I do and the kind of artist I want to be, and a little bit about my personal experience. And I think that that's really what helped lock me into being offered this position.
Nice. So for anybody who is kind of curious about applying for it, would you say that, as much as it sounds like it's a very involved process, it was something that is very worthwhile?
Absolutely. Anyone who gets the opportunity to have been invited back, to have been invited to the callbacks, regardless of what the outcome was, because of course there was only so many slots for so many people. Realistically, Stratford did everything they could to support the artist that was coming in. So they felt like it was like a 2-day masterclass, because we got a chance to not only like meet and have some personal FaceTime with Anthony Cimolino, the artistic director, but also the casting director of the program, and also be able just to engage with other artists from across the country. Many of us whom still stay in touch, even though a majority of the people didn't get in. But then we start seeing people who are at the callbacks going off and going to Shaw, or booking this show or booking that show, or so the success rate of the people that were at the interview is quite high, and we're seeing that even though people didn't happen to make it through the program this time round, a lot of them are still pursuing the arts in a professional way, and maybe they'll submit again this season for the next round, or maybe they've gone on to do something else.
Exactly. So now you're part of the conservatory. You've gone through 1 year, is that right? Because it started last year in 2022.
Yeah.
So you're about to start season 2, I understand, around now in the festival. schedule. So, you know, what has been what are some of the things that you've learned along the way in the first year that are, you know, sort of nuggets or treasures that you've found that you're taking into this new season?
It's a great question. We actually we had a similar reflection question asked to us a little bit earlier at the beginning of this year, and I would have to say that some of the things that I would bring forward from last year to this year is just trusting process, and that there's not always an answer to everything, and sometimes artists have to live in the unknown and be able to dive in the pool without being able to see the bottom, kind of thing. You know, like these are all things that I had been told over the years from various different performing arts programs and people, but it really landed while I was at the festival, because really I can say that the caliber here is like the Olympics of theater. You know, it's akin to, you know, it's the highest level of intensity that you could do in the country, apart from Shaw or the Charlottetown Festival, just in terms of length of contract, but also the amount of people that are here, and the level of skill that people have. So yeah, I mean, although it was extremely intimidating, even just to be an assistant director on one of the big Shakespeare shows last year,
Yeah.
one of the I really it was just patience was a virtue, and that everything was a learning moment, and just to absorb. I absorbed so much in the first year that I've taken into this second year, just about understanding time management, and the fact that our schedules are always constantly changing. You know, to making sure that we check our daily schedules, because sometimes they'll book us for a class, or sometimes they'll change our rehearsal on a moment's notice, and so we'll have to stay abreast of making sure that we know exactly where we're going and what we're doing on any given day. And so just because this is such a big machine, you know, between going to fittings and then going to an interview, or being booked to a tutorial class, or then having rehearsal, or your rehearsal is split between this room and this room, and then you're spending some time here and some time there. And so it's just a lot of being on top of many things, and having a lot of balls in the air, kind of thing. So I think just uh, patience and better time management, and learning to sit in the unknown as an artist, or just sort of the big picture things that I've taken to this year.
Yeah, it sounds like, you know, essential skills wherever you go, actually. So that's kind of nice and reassuring. So now that you're starting into your second year, you're also assisting director for another show. Is that right?
That's
Coming.
right. So I'm gonna be starting in a few weeks on a brand new play by Nick Green called Casey and Diana, and that's gonna be the opener of the studio theater this year. The shows in the studio are a little bit different this year than last year. They're in stock versus rep, which means that, like a regular theater season, we'll rehearse for a shorter period of time. We'll open, and then a couple weeks later we'll close. And instead of another show coming in and them changing our crew changing the sets, the show will be completely struck, and then another show will go in. So the shows in the studio series this year are they're time sensitive. So anybody who wants to go and see the shows, if they're not available on Stratfest at home digitally, they have a shorter window to be able to come and see them. So,
Oh, I see.
so yeah,
So we gotta get our tickets like ASAP. That's what you're saying.
yeah, yeah,
For those who want to go in person, obviously there's a digital
yeah,
option. But I think
yeah.
I think a lot of us are ready to go back in person and sort of be immersed
Mhm.
in theater again. So you know, in reflecting upon your experience and talking about how even just when you showed up for the callback, there was a reflection of what the art landscape in actually looks like represented. How do you feel, or what do you think Stratford is doing like well now in terms of addressing their goals to, you know, be more diverse and inclusive and sort of, because I know that there's a line about, you know, upholding tradition, but also it, you know, also allowing for change to still happen within that.
Yeah, I think that some of the really great things that Stratford is doing, especially within the last couple of years, is they have a real like we have a really great EDI department, which is like covering all kinds of like it covers diversity and inclusion and on all levels of the festival, from the creative teams to the from the acting companies to crew, just and administration and everybody. One of my mentors, Esther Jun, she is one of the directors of development and also the director of the Langham program for directors. She also, with Ted Wetzel, had implemented a program called Pro, which I think a lot of companies really need to get on board with this. And what that is called pre-rehearsal orientation. And so these pro days are built within our schedule so that outside of the rehearsal time, we get together with facilitators and we talk about our access needs, and we get a chance to get to know the crew and the company, and we all work together sort of as one voice, and we just talk about the ways that we like to work, and it's almost like a giant HR meeting, you know, where just these are the kind of things that often get washed over in a rehearsal period, is just remembering what people's access needs are, how they are affected by the work, talking about sensitivity when it comes to intimacy, depending on the type of show that it is. And so all these conversations happen in the room with facilitators so that everybody feels safe having voice and everybody has options to be able to voice their opinions if something feels wrong or something doesn't feel safe, that there are agents of change that will allow us to safely have these conversations in civil ways so that the work can move forward, as opposed to just repressing it or festering it down, or just having this antiquated idea that you're an actor, you just gotta like roll with the punches, or you just gotta like not take it so personally. You know, we're living in an age right now where there is a lot of movements like Me Too and Not in Our Space, and things that have been created.
You're muted. You're muted.
When it comes to all types of performer
Yeah.
and creative people.
Great, thank you. Sorry, we just got cut off there for a second. But yeah, and I think it's important to reflect on that, because you're part of like the first Asian Canadian that is part of this conservatory effort. Is that right?
I'm the first Asian Canadian directing candidate. So there have been Asian Canadians that have gone through the program as actors. Ince Choi actually went through the program as an actor, but I'm the first one Asian Canadian as a directing candidate.
Right. So there's still room for improvement in that category of directing, but you know, there's still probably some people who may be thinking about applying and haven't yet. So it's nice to hear that there's a lot of learning opportunities, whether you make it like yourself for the 2-year program, or even as a callback in terms of the experience in a masterclass type of setting. I don't want to forget that you also had other endeavors before coming to Stratford. You were the co-founder of the Fabulous Theater Company. Can you talk a little bit about that, and also what other things you have going on?
Yeah, of course. So Fabulous Theater is a company that my creative partner and I, Mary Littlejohn, started back in 2017. We're both friends from theater school. And at the time in Vancouver, it was right before Trump had closed the borders. So we wanted to put on a show that reflected the immigrant experience, refugee experience, and so we did the musical Songs for New World, which is traditionally a four-hander musical, but we expanded it and we gave it a little bit more narrative. Normally there's no narrative, it's just a bunch of vignettes and songs and it cycles through, but we decided to create somewhat of a through line, connecting people and characters together, and make it focused on the immigrant experience. And then that show led us to really finesse and nail down what the mandate of our company was, which was to amplify and champion underrepresented voices, BIPOC voices, LGBTQIA plus, disabled voices, just sort of a large spectrum to be able to give opportunity to people that don't normally get that opportunity. And I'm not saying that there's not companies out there that are disability focused or LGBTQIA plus focused or even culturally diverse focused. We just open our doors to kind of everyone, and as opposed to being like VAC, so Vancouver Asian Canadian Theatre, or Real Wheels, which is a company for disabled and differently abled performing artists, and we just open it up for everyone, and be able to go, we want to reflect the full diversity of the performing arts in non-traditional ways. And not only do we perform published material in unique and different reimagined ways, but we also do original materials, and then also be able to amplify voices of creative people. We've commissioned original radio plays from BIPOC and queer creatives. We've had opportunities to showcase people of color in many of our shows, if not all of our shows. Heavily feature people of color in lead parts. So that's that's just one of the things that we do. And then we've also, of course, branched into things like education. And so we've done youth camp programs that will match professional or emerging artists with students, so that they get the experience not only of like a performing arts camp experience, but also a step of what it's like to work in a ensemble with professionals, pre-professionals, emerging artists, so that they can use that camp or that experience as a stepping stone before going off to like community theater or possibly even professional or pre-professional theater. So it just gives them that opportunity right away, so that they get the feeling and the working conditions from an educational standpoint that mixes the different levels together, so that it better prepares them in the industry. So yeah, and right now, me being in Stratford, and my producing partner had moved to Nanaimo with her family just after the pandemic had hit. So we're doing a lot of stuff remotely on satellite, and we just do a lot of things like connecting with other small companies to create co-productions, or we'll commission someone to do something. And right now we're actually commissioning a new work all about being Asian in Vancouver, which is sort of a complementary piece to a play that we had done that was written by Mark Laren Young, called Dim Sum Diaries, in the 90s. That was quite controversial for CBC Radio. So we're developing sort of a new version of that story with new voices and new writers, to be able to be presented next year during Lunar New Year.
Oh, that sounds exciting. To think that some of these pieces were considered controversial. It's also the importance of arts education, which I think you nicely touched upon with, speaking about your camps that you've done with the Fabulous Theater folks, and access to the arts for younger audiences, so that we can engage them and kind of give them an insight on what the possibilities are also to work within that world. So thank you for sharing that. Really, really exciting. So I'm gonna look out for updates on what's coming up for next year. So you mentioned that you're gonna be the assistant director for Casey and Diana. Do you have the dates for that so people know to get their tickets as soon as possible?
Yes, so we start previewing, I believe March or May 17th.
Okay.
We open June 1st and we close June 17th. So it's a very short 2 months of performances. So yes, so we'll go into previews. I believe May 17th or somewhere around the middle of May. We'll open the studio as part of a week-long opening of the festival of shows. Literally, if you come to this Stratford Festival at any point, and if you can be here for like a week, that first week will be the most ruckus because every day, every night will be a different opening from like Tuesday on to Saturday night. Like there'll be like King Lear will open that night, Spamalot and Rents and Casey and Diana, and so like yeah, it'll be a pretty magical season this year. But yeah, so if people want specifically to come see Casey and Diana, which is just a little bit of a backstory about it is about when Princess Diana visited Casey House in Toronto in the 90s. And the tagline is the handshake seen around the world because there was the famous pictures of her embracing AIDS patients, which really broke down the stigma and the fear in the 90s behind people's unknowingness and ignorance behind the what was happening with AIDS patients. And so that's what this story is about. It sort of chronicles the life and relationships of different patients and care workers and their families, all sort of centered around this upcoming visit of Princess Diana, which really happened in 1991.
Yes, yes. I learned about that when I moved to Canada. So there is a very pivotal sort of in that history of the AIDS towards the ends of the, I guess maybe in the middle of the AIDS crisis, but it was I'll be interested to see how you put together a play based on that. So good luck with that. I know you're probably in rehearsal already, right? So
no, we don't do rehearsals until April 10th. We're just in prep. I'm just in prep mode right now.
Okay. So I caught you a good time. So thank you for giving us an inside look on what's coming up at Stratford. I'll be sure to put the dates so people know, exactly when to catch Casey and Diana, but also the other exciting openings, as you mentioned. If we could spend a week at Stratford, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Thank you so much, Damon. Before I close our chat, I just want to ask if you want to maybe mention your website or any socials in case people want to know more about your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So my theater website is fabuloustheater.ca. Theater spelled the Canadian way, not the American way. And then for me on social media, the best way to get in touch with me or just to see how I work is on Instagram. And it's just my name. It's just at Damon B as in Bradley and then Jang, Jang.
Perfect. I'll be sure to also thank you once we post this and it goes to you. So thank you so much, Damon. It's a pleasure speaking with you. Again, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much.
That's right.
Yes, thank you.